Man, oh man, what a difference a couple of weeks make for UConn football. It's a Football Friday. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I just want to take a quick moment to ask for a small favor. If you're enjoying the content, both the men's and women's basketball, as well as UConn football, please take a second to subscribe and follow the audio versions wherever you listen. It really helps the show grow. I truly appreciate the support. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's blowing up pretty fast. I love it. Every follow, subscription, and download helps create more impressions. What that means, it creates more revenue for me, and subsequently, it creates more revenue for UConn NIL. Yes, Locked On UConn is supporting and donating 10% of all revenue to Bleeding Blue for Good. So by supporting this show, you are directly supporting the UConn athletic programs initiatives in the NIL collectives. Thank you for being a part of this community. We really and truly appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place the first $5 bet that you can as a new customer, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started or download the app. Okay, what a difference a couple weeks make. We're going to bring in my Football Friday co-host today, Bobby Wilson, in his mobile vehicle, doing us a solid. Pete is out today. We wish him well. Hope everything's good on his side. Bobby, we talked about this pre-show. Think about the shows we did earlier in the year, just 5 short weeks ago. What a difference a couple of weeks makes for UConn. What do you see as the biggest difference of how this was turned around?
Man, you're exactly right. It's a complete turnaround from what it was. I mean, I think week one, we're playing a tougher opponent. Again, still we had to work a lot of stuff out. We got a new offense, new defense, new schemes all over the place. And I think the other thing, sometimes you just have a bad day, and we had a really, really bad day, and it just all spiraled out of control at one time. I guarantee you, if we played that game again, it would be. I'm not going to say we're going to win the game, but it's going to be a much different result than what it was. But to answer your question, I think that in the trenches, we are just dominating teams, offensively and defensively on both our lines. We are just we've just been fantastic on both sides of the ball there, just taking complete control of in both situations. And this week in particular, we have a huge advantage over Temple, and I know we'll get into that momentarily in the trenches, but we're just really dominating there.
Honestly, I'll give you some stats for the Buffalo game as a retrospective. In the 47-3 victory on my birthday, it was a very nice present for me. I really appreciate it. Both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, were completely dominant. 537 yards of offense, including 280 yards through the air and 257 yards rushing. Skylar Bell, obviously 3 touchdowns and 153 receiving yards. Defensively, UConn held Buffalo to 198 total yards and forced 1 turnover. The Huskies controlled the game with over 34 minutes of time of possession and likely could have had a lot more if it weren't for some long touchdowns, and made sure to limit Buffalo's opportunities. To say that this was a thrashing would be an understatement of almost epic proportions. For me, and I talked about this again with you pre-show, I'm going to continue to say that Jim Mora is running the show, but his coordinators have done a phenomenal job, in particular Gordon Sammis with his play calling. Talk about a 360-degree difference from the beginning of the year to now. All the things you said earlier are valid points. Lower competition, you're not playing on the road as much, any of the negative stuff you can think about. But the idea about his offense was, in my opinion, I thought it was conservative. It's nothing like that. It just isn't. And I had Joe Arruda on from the Hartford Courant talking about, I feel like he made a great point about how Gordon was probably trying to figure out what he had. And now that he does, he is truly in his bag with calling plays and getting the guys in the right position to win football games. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think from Gordon's perspective, he's doing an amazing job utilizing all the skill pieces that we have, all the tools that we have in the toolbox, let's just say. It's refreshing to see, because in previous years, we haven't necessarily had an offensive coordinator that utilized the weapons that we had. Now, granted, we have a lot more weapons this year than we've had in previous years, but still, we have somebody who is finding ways to get those guys in really, really good spots and utilizing that. And then Matt Brock, from a defensive perspective, his energy that he has on the sideline, you can tell it's not fake. Those guys love it. They're all locked in and to what he's telling them to do. And that's something Pete and I have talked about. Like, there's a lot of rah-rah guys that say just a bunch of nonsense, and it just is what it is. But, like, you can tell when Coach Brock is really coaching them up and letting them have it, let's say. I mean, those guys are listening. They're locked in. They're locked on to what they're supposed to be doing, and they're taking care of business the right way.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wanted to get a quick second to acknowledge something. This is not a sponsored post. I'm not getting any money out of this. If you see the shirt I'm wearing, it's hashtag the kidney. It is a donation and a drive for Matthew Leb, who is a hated Providence Friar, but he is a fantastic guy, and he is trying to find a kidney because he has some issues and is needing in the transplant. So if you see this shirt, you can honestly just go to Twitter and use the hashtag the kidney, and you can find out where to get it. But because every donation goes to funds for his medical bills. But definitely it went viral at the time. I got mine yesterday. I told him I would wear it on the show at some point. So just wanted to acknowledge that. Go help out the cause. Really hope he gets the medical attention he needs and finds that, donor for a kidney. But now that that's out of the way, I feel like for us with UConn football, I feel like some of the pride that people had in having a program, kind of a transition away from Providence because they don't have a football program. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where people were literally telling us that we should be like, don't, stick with the Big East, dump the football program, make them play in the MAC, have them go back to, 1AA FCS. How vindicating is this? I feel like for the football athletic department, the football department, and the school as a whole.
As somebody who's been trying to stand on that pedestal, promoting the football program to the highest level that I can, it is so rewarding to see how these guys are going out there performing. Watching that game last week against Buffalo, I just have to say I was so happy and proud, just as a fan of this team, to just see what they can be. And I think this is just a great opportunity for people to see, like, look what happens when we live in a world of NIL. Look at what happens when we start putting some money and resources into the football program. Look at what we can be. We are a pretty darn good football team right now. Yes, maybe we've beaten some lower level competition, but this Buffalo team that we just beat, it's a good team. And they're going to have a good year. They're going to make a bowl game. I firmly believe that. They're going to do just fine in the Mid-American Conference. Coming down the stretch, I look at our schedule, and ESPN agrees with this. I think that we're going to be favored in every game that we play. I firmly believe that, and to look at that as a fan, not just somebody who, from the media perspective that I have and works in that realm and that world, if I'm just speaking as a fan right now, it's so rewarding and refreshing to see just what's going on.
To give some context, because you're right, we are playing lower level competition, but the idea that UConn can't, we're just not just beating people, we're dominating them. And I look back at the Missouri Buffalo game, a common opponent. Missouri won that game 38-0. Cool, they didn't give up any points. I mean, what's more impressive? Which game was more impressive? I think UConn dominated them in a much more thorough fashion, and that's a top 10 school in the SEC. So you can point to that stuff, and I that's why I'm the sticking point in this season, no matter what happens for me. And this is my negative Nancy point of view right now. I'm trying to stay positive, but let me tell you something. That Duke game, if we're sitting here at 4-1 and an opportunity to potentially win out and go 11-1 on this season, I look at that. I look at that as such a missed opportunity, because it was an ACC scalp. It would have shut up a lot of people about UConn. We started to kind of turn some heads on that because it was a close game and we took the lead. But now, I mean, think about it. How bad do you think the UConn players want to play Maryland and Duke over again? Like, if they could just get a redo and play the way they're playing right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guarantee you those guys would take that in a second. Players and coaches.
Absolutely.
We were so close, like you said, against Duke, and maybe a loss like that in that result is what propels us to what we're doing right now. But at the same time, I know those guys absolutely believe that that's a game they should have got.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let's go pay a couple bills, make sure I keep my job, and we'll be back after these words talking about the Temple preview, and then, of course, the quarterback position with Nick and Joey, the never-ending saga of the QBs of UConn, coming up after this. All right, it's your old pal Mark here talking about FanDuel, and, of course, we're going to talk about UConn football. What else? Is there any other football around? No, I'm kidding. UConn started this game as a -5.5. I think it was even as low as 4.5 when the lines came out. People have hammered that line so much that right now I've seen it as high as 17.5. If you go on FanDuel right now, it's 16.5. By the time this comes out, could be more, could be less. I'm sure some people have put some money on Temple because they feel like there's just too much action going on. UConn, and it's stabilized. So anywhere between 16 and 18 points, I think, from what we're going to talk about later in the show, you should absolutely put your money on UConn this weekend. I am 100% doing that. I'm going to hammer whatever number I get to on Saturday, and maybe hammer a couple beers and watch the game. So if this is your first time on FanDuel, you get use $5 and get $200 of bonus bets. You can throw all that on the UConn game if you want. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds to get started. Okay, I'm going to bring Bobby back here as soon as I drop off the FanDuel stuff, and he's back. All right, Bobby, let's talk about Temple now. The second of 3 Owl teams we're playing, right? We're trying to hunt some Owls again. Worked out well against FAU if it's the same type of game, which I kind of believe it's going to be. I think we should visit a taxidermy and get an owl and like put it somewhere in the UConn football program, and then bring it out for the final game against Rice to kind of take them down. So no, Temple does not meet the smell test of a team that can give UConn a challenge. Never thought I'd say that going into this season because I felt like this was going to be a rough year for them. But now that we're where we're at, tell me what your initial impression is about this Temple game.
There's question marks across the board. I will say they have inserted a new quarterback in Evan Simon, who has found ways to move the ball for them. He's thrown for over 200 yards in his 3 starts. Now, he does have a shoulder injury that he's day-to-day and questionable for the upcoming game against us. If he doesn't play against us, Temple is going to struggle. And I firmly believe they're going to struggle either way. But if he doesn't play, this could get really ugly for their side. The guy that they had starting at the beginning of the year, Brock, just turned it over way too much. They have a freshman that I've read from some of their fans that they're high on, but still he's a freshman. You look at them, their wide receiver, Dante Walker, has I believe, 34 catches for 450 yards. The next closest receiver from a reception percentage or statistic has 9 catches The next closest in yardage has 99 yards. So know where number 5 is at all times. That's the key to their passing game. That's the guy that they want to get the ball to. I've never seen, even in an early, only 4 games in, I've never seen a spread of the statistics in that heavy of a margin towards one receiver. Maybe since like Randy Moss or something crazy like that. I'd have to go back and look at that. But it's pretty crazy how that statistic works for them. But the thing for Temple is they are, I'm going to put it bluntly, they struggle to stop the run. And
I'm
they can be
I'm going to stop you right there. You're 100% right. Do you know how many rushing yards they've given up in the against a whole year? An even 1,300 yards in 5 games, 260.2 yards per game against. If that isn't a tailor-made situation for Gordon Sammis and his offense, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen what we've done against better rush defenses, and we've still been able to control it. Like FAU has a pretty solid defense, and we were able to run for 421 yards. Buffalo has a very solid defense. Like that's a good defense, and we were able, I want to say, in the 250s. We're gonna put up a big number here in this game. But the other thing is like we're going to be able to throw the ball against them too, because they don't defend that very well either.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games where it feels odd to be like they have no shot against us, like none. Like and I say that with a caveat because you always have a chance. Something, special teams, a tipped pass, all of a sudden they're up 14-0 or something like that, and UConn panics. Don't see that happening. I think even if UConn struggled early, I think they're going to put up some big numbers, as the game goes. And I think Gordon Sammis really feels comfortable with what he's working with. And we're going to talk about in the next segment about Nick and Joey, regardless of who he has at the helm, because they are going to use the run to set up the pass. And then sometimes use a little bit of pass to set up the run. He is doing enough right now that it is imperative for defenses to try to stop them on first down, because once they start flowing, then, they if they're in 2nd and 3, they're in like the best position possible you could potentially be in on a football team, because everything opens up. They can continue to run it down your throat, or they can use Skylar Bell, TJ Sheffield, and others to kind of spread the ball down the field. So I love the position they're in against a Temple team that's out giving up 408 yards of offense per game. They only average about 200 yards of passing, and that was largely on one game that kind of pumped those numbers up. They're only averaging 18 points a game to UConn's, I think, close to 40 at this point, especially at home, almost averaging 50 points at home. They're giving up 37 points per game. It's just every major statistic shows that UConn wins this game outright and probably by the spread, if not by more.
Absolutely. Temple, again, they can be undisciplined. They move the ball, but then they turn the ball over. They have a -11 turnover differential on the season. They have key penalties in key situations where they just shoot themselves in the foot in the couple of games that I've watched. I just watch them, and it's an undisciplined football team.
Well, what I'm going to say is, this has nothing to do with. I'm going to see if people are watching and they want to, and they are going to really be honed in on this one game, not just like I'm going to watch it and watch my kids and stuff like that. I'll tell you right now. Last Saturday on my birthday, my wife was very nice to me. I got to like sit and watch football. She took care of the kids, and I just got to hang out. And I honed in on this game, obviously, because it's my job, but also because I was really excited about UConn. And I made so much money just watching the live drives, because it was so predictable what was happening with Buffalo. So it would be like every once in a while I'd hit on like a UConn touchdown, and that was like +120 or something like that. But with Buffalo, it was like -110 to punt. So as soon as UConn was getting ready to score, I'd put more money on Buffalo punting. And I did it about 9 drives in a row, and then they finally broke the streak or something like that. and I was up quite a bit of money. I have a feeling this could be another game like that. So if you are inclined to sit there, whatever your limit is per bet it constantly on this, on the live drive results, and do it on FanDuel to help our partner out. I don't know if you're a betting guy, but like, I look at this as an opportunity for UConn fans to have some fun and also potentially line their pockets, because I don't know if we're going to play another game like this where it's going to be that easy.
There's definitely something to that. I want to say against Buffalo, we allowed them 1 and 17 on 3rd and 4th down combined. I mean, if you do that, for goodness sake, you're going to beat almost everybody. I mean, that's just incredible. And the thing is like, Buffalo is significantly better than Temple.
You heard it here, folks. Get those piggy banks open and really try to win some money this weekend with my buddies at FanDuel. When we come back, we're going to talk about Nick and Joey and the quarterback situation, give Gordon Sammis even some more love with the ability to juggle these two guys and their different styles of play, coming up after this. What's up, UConn fans? You know me, I love home field. I was putting out ads while I was waiting in the hospital for my daughter to be born. They have something new that's coming down the pike. It is called the Heartland Campus Classic Pullover, and it's here. Not quite yet for UConn fans. There's 20 right now in stock. UConn's is dropping later this month, but I promise you, I saw a mock-up of it. It is fantastic and glorious. It kind of reminds me of the old starter pullovers. I feel like that's what they're going for. It's coming soon. There's the new designs, add something you'll love. It's also, from what I can see, it's actually probably comfortable for the fall. And so get a sneak peek of the collection now. There's 20 schools. I think it's like Kansas, Illinois, Wisconsin, and others, Notre Dame, Purdue. They're out right now. Use the promo code UConn24 to get 15% off the order. And you know UConn is going to be back to looking incredible in these classic pullovers. So don't miss out. Head over to Home Field right now and be ready to snag yours when it drops. Sign up and you'll get an alert. Talk to people at Home Field. Oh, it's our old pals at Game Time. UConn fans, get your tickets on Game Time and save $20. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, make an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and you will save $20 on your first purchase. We looked at this the other day. Let's look at what these prices are right now. I'm literally checking out the Game Time app right now. The last one I saw, like the best seats in the house were like $64. And if you're doing $20 off, that's, now it's a $40 ticket for front row 50-yard line. Can't beat it. This one is another one. Great value, top 1%. It's lower sideline in front of one of the end zones. You're kind of looking at it like a TV view. Section 137, row 5, $19. So if you're buying 2 tickets, you basically get 1 for free. Go check them out. Game Time makes it easy, so you can even check it out with what it looks like from your seat. Don't miss out on the action. Grab your tickets now and cheer on the Huskies as they destroy Temple this weekend. Let's go Huskies, bleed blue. Okay, let's get Bobby back here after my stellar ad work. Bobby, let's talk about the quarterback position. Nick Evers was taken out of the game. I believe it was 10-0. They were driving. It was like late second quarter. And looked like it was a concussion. Just call it what it is. And he already had one against Maryland. And so, we've talked about this. If he's not ready, we don't want him to play. But he's practicing. He practiced Tuesday. And I'm sure he's been practicing all week. I don't know if there's been any setbacks. Jim Mora, in his media availability on Wednesday, talked about that he's looking good and, he still has some work to do, but no mention of a concussion, no mention of in concussion protocol. So what do you think they do with him? I think I'm leaning towards, like, I thought he wasn't going to play against Duke, and he did. I think he plays this weekend unless they see some kind of setback.
I think he's absolutely going to play. I think it's been made clear by Mora and company that Nick's the guy. As long as he's healthy and good to go. I was hesitant for the Duke game as well because obviously I want him. You want your quarterback to be healthy. I'm big on staying cautious, especially on a head injury. At the end of the day, football it's great. We love it, but you got life after this too. But like you said, there was never really a mention of a concussion. So
None.
It it's it seems to me that he would be good to go. It certainly looked like a concussion as we're watching the game, but again,
Right.
you want to be cautious. We're playing well, and I give Joe credit for being ready to go when he was needed, because he didn't have to get ready; he stayed ready.
That's right. He really only missed like one throw. If I'm being honest, you know, I like I said, I was like betting on every drive, so I was like locked in on that, and or locked on, if you will. But yeah, he missed a crossing route to TJ Sheffield that easily would have been to the house, and I think that was like one of their only punts in that session. But I'll tell you what, man, if you look at their stats, you know, if a casual fan jumps on UConn's website and is like, oh, let me look at their quarterback stats. Joey Fagnano has 10 touchdowns to 1 interception as a backup quarterback. He's averaging almost 60% passing completion percentage. His rating is 219.42. And he has the longest pass of the year is a 70-yarder, and he's averaging about 150 yards per game because part of the time he doesn't play. And Nick is no slouch. I mean, a part of this, obviously, he's got the running threat. He's got 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and then obviously the running aspect of it. So it's wild to me that in college football, your 4-star superstar quarterback is likely, you know, he may play, he may not. And everyone's like, okay, no big deal. We're still a 18-point favorite or whatever it is. That's just a testament to not only Joey, but to the staff in the ability to adjust. Talk maybe about like what were your thoughts when he went out? Like, did you think Gordon Sammis was going to be able to adjust like that? I thought there was going to be a little bit of an adjustment period.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would take a drive or so, but there was nothing. I mean, it was literally instantly. We're just bam. We're just executing at such a high level. And like you said, that's kudos to Coach Sammis. That's kudos to Joe Fagnano for being ready to go. I mean, like just a tremendous job by everyone involved in that. I mean, we didn't miss a beat. I mean, you could even argue that we played better. It was just, it was fantastic.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I do love, okay, and I'll bring this, and you're a basketball coach, so you'll appreciate this. When I watched the game, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of how impressive it was for when Coach Hurley had Donovan Clingan and Samson Johnson in pick and roll defense. And they play totally different styles, but the team knows exactly what to do from a rotation standpoint, no matter who's in the game. So like when Donovan would get in foul trouble and you're playing with Samson, you're more jumping those pick and rolls versus kind of hedging. And then there's different rotational responsibilities for that. When Joey comes in, the offensive line automatically has to kind of be more wary of pass protection more, kick out blocks, like things of that nature. When they're doing power moves with Nick, it's more kind of pulls, and they're doing those stretch plays. It's just a totally different mindset. So I also got to give that offensive line a ton of credit to be able to just switch on the fly like that. Shows how talented they are and how locked on they are with their assignments.
Absolutely, and that's a great analogy. I mean, it's crazy to think that how many more players are on a football field and how complex it is to get them to all do that so quickly. It's really, really impressive. And I mean, yes, I can speak to the basketball aspect. I know how difficult that is as a coach to get your players to understand, hey, when this person's in, we want to do this. When that person's in, we want to do this. Now add in double the players, basically.
Right.
And try getting them to do it all at the way you want it to do it. It's a testament to just the level of coaching that we have on this staff. And that's something Pete and I have talked about all summer, that we felt like this was the best staff that we've had in a long time. I think it's very clear that that's the case. But, man, these guys, they're doing such a fantastic job. These guys are prepared and ready to go for, it seems like, every situation that can be thrown at them.
Let's touch on that before we go. Matt Brock, unsung hero defensively. His linebackers, his defensive line, his secondary is playing lights out. He's able to implore this 3-3-5 that has a lot of wrinkles to it, where they don't necessarily know who's going to put the finger in the ground or hand in the ground and who's going to drop out. Jelani Stafford and Jack Barton had PBUs as dropping back in zone. It's usually one side or the other that's really like rocking and rolling and in their bag, but they both are. And I feel like they have to feed off each other because they know that if they get off the field, that offense is going to run down and score points. So What's that like for you as a coach to kind of see the way that these two coaches, Matt Brock in particular, and then Gordon Sammis, are just feeding off of each other and helping each other out?
Gosh, I love it. It's so fun to watch. Like from a coaching perspective, to see how they feed off of each other. And I think there's a lot to that as well. Like when you see one side of the ball doing well, I think it raises the energy and the level of the other side.
Sure.
Now, granted, you see some teams that are so one-dimensional in the things that they do, but we just have so many really talented pieces here that it's just really able to accelerate things and to have two coordinators that are rising. I'm just going to say it. I think they're rising stars in the profession. I mean, these guys are doing what they're doing. The national people I talk to look at this team and they're like, "Holy crap! Like you guys are so much better in every way. Like, how does it happen?" And I literally tell them, I'm like, "Look at our coordinators and what they're doing with, we got great players. That helps, but the players win the games, but the coaches are putting them in the right spot to do the things that they need to do."
Before we go, I'm going to give a shout out, two shout outs. One to Chris Freeman. He has really established himself as a kicker and really kind of given them an option where if a drive stalls, we're not like, oh, geez, here comes the college kicker that's going to miss. He really has impressed me with his comeback. I think he's got 6 straight field goals made now, something to that effect. I really thought Coach Mora was going to allow him to kick a 50-yarder to see if they can get 50 points in the last drive of the game, but they just kind of, I think they punted or ran out the clock. When it was like 4th and 4, I thought they went for it. It could have been 4th and 10, but I thought he had a 48-yard attempt. He hasn't made a longer field goal than 39. I thought that would have been a good opportunity with no stakes to kind of give him some, a little bit of opportunity to kind of hit a longer field goal, boost that confidence even more. But kudos to him. And then the other one, I did this the last time we did a football show. Langston Hardy is playing like a man possessed. Had 2 sacks in the game. I shouted him out on X, and his dad was like, "Appreciate the props." And I was like, "Kevin Hardy, that's awesome. I love it." So I'll shout out Kevin Hardy as well. His dad was a NFL linebacker for the Eagles and Jaguars, I believe. So Langston comes from good stock, and I just hope he continues to dominate this weekend, which they have another opportunity to eat this weekend against a weaker Temple offense. Any last words, predictions on score, and then I'll tell you mine.
Well, Army beat them 42-14. I'm gonna stick with that one right there. It might even be generous to give them 14 points, honestly.
I was going to say it.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, they can move the football. The one thing I will say is that they're more of a passing team than a running team. And when we played a spread passing team the last time we did that against Maryland, granted, nowhere near the level of skilled players, obviously. But our secondary is going to get tested a little more this week than they have been in the past couple of weeks. We're going to be up to the challenge. I'm not worried about it, but right. It's going to be fun to see how they react in that situation.
I will say this, my last word, because I have to comment off of that. I think the defensive line is chomping at the bit because they know that this team can't run against them. So what that means is you can just pin your ears back and just get after it. Jack Barton, Tuafamini Brown, Langston Hardy, Jelani Stafford, like just go get that quarterback and make it miserable. And if I'm Matt Brock, I am literally sending all kinds of blitzes from all over the place and trusting that secondary because I don't feel like they're talented enough to beat us over the top the way Maryland was. And if they do, who cares? We have a wagon on offense. Let them score 20 points. I have a feeling it's going to be a high-scoring game because I think UConn's going to drop another 50-burger or close to it. I have them winning 51-10 in an absolute just dismantling of Temple, and I'm super excited about that. Let me tell you before we go, I really appreciate you jumping on and helping me host the Football Friday. We missed Pete today. I hope he's doing well. Guys, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn Football Friday edition. I hope you guys can get over to the rent. These guys, trust me, I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. Bobby does not live close to Connecticut. I won't give his whereabouts. He's from parts unknown. If we lived close, we would literally be there tailgating with you. Do not miss an opportunity. It's inexpensive to go to these football games. It's not always going to be because this team is on the rise. So take advantage of it now. Say you were there at the beginning when this kind of new program just kind of rose from the ashes. I'm really excited about UConn football, and I'm excited about covering it. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn for Bobby Wilson of the College Football TNT College Football Podcast. This is Mark Zanetto saying, stay locked on, stay connected, and always bleed blue. Let's get these Huskies another win. Go Huskies, go blue.